All right, guys, I'm excited. The Utah Jazz have a new head coach, and it looks like they might have hit a home run. I guess we'll find out here soon. Let's talk about it. It's the Hoops Nerd Show. All right, guys, so the Utah Jazz just hired Will Hardy, who was the lead assistant for the Boston Celtics for their new head coach. And from everything we're seeing, it's a nice hire. A little bit about Will Hardy. He is now officially the youngest head coach in the NBA at 34 years old. What's his background? Will Hardy started off in the Spurs system, I guess kind of similar to Quinn, although it's a little different. He starts off as a video coordinator, which I like because it reminds me of Eric Spoelstra. He is quickly upgraded to assistant coach and is in the huddle with Popovich for like 5-6 years. What's interesting, and I saw, and a lot of this research comes from just different things you see online. You have to study these out. It's like the Jazz brought in 15 people per head coach. There's just no way to have that in depth of a study of each guy, like I'm sure the Jazz did. But the guy won an internship or got the internship with the Spurs over like 69 other people and gets the internship. So the guy is someone that stands out from a crowd, obviously. He is quickly upgraded to assistant coach after he is a video coordinator with the Spurs after 5-6 years. So that's the difference between Hardy and Quinn. Like everyone wants to say, well, Quinn Snyder started this. Quinn Snyder was with the Spurs for like 2 or 3 years, but he wasn't actually with the Spurs. He was the head coach of the Austin Toros. And I know that's connected to Popovich, but Will Hardy was actually in the huddle with Popovich. You know what I mean? Like, does anyone really think of the Stars head coaches when they think of the Utah Jazz? I don't think so. Like Martin, I can't remember. It was Martin. I can't remember his name. Was the head coach? We actually interviewed him on SLC Dunk. He didn't actually work with Quinn all the time. And when I went to cover the Stars and the Salt Lake City Stars, Quinn was never there. You may have had a few assistant coaches from the Jazz with the Stars, but they weren't all that connected. And so I think that's the big difference, is that Will Hardy is in the huddle with Popovich, watching his coaching style, learning. It's a true mentorship there. And then what happens? Not only is he with the successful and a strong Spurs system that teaches you what it means to have a strong culture, good order, and things like that in your coaching staff and in the locker room. He then goes from the Spurs to the Boston Celtics, and he's there for 1 year under new head coach Ime Udoka. And the thing I love about that is Ime Udoka goes to a team with the Boston Celtics that was just, honestly, before this season, the MO with the Celtics was they were soft. You know how the Jazz were this year, where they just give up leads at the end? Well, that was the story of the Boston Celtics the year before. It was just a team that would get leads and then just give them up in the fourth because they were flat out, and if we're being honest, soft. And for the first half of like last season with the Boston Celtics, it looked really similar. And they were like 500 when they were getting near the trade deadline or midway through the season. And then things just turned around, and we know what happened with the Boston Celtics. No longer were they soft. That team was as tough-minded and tough physically as anyone in the league, and went toe-to-toe with teams like the Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis, and just bashed with those guys, with the Miami Heat, and just clashed and fought and hit. Honestly, if you don't have respect for what the Boston Celtics became and who they are now compared to what they were the season before, you aren't watching the NBA. And what I love about that is Will Hardy was a part of that. Absolutely. Now, Will Hardy, and we've got to give credit to Ime Udoka. He's the head coach. But the thing that's cool is Will Hardy was the lead assistant and was a big part of their tactics in the playoffs. We watched the Boston Celtics just figure teams out series after series. And then obviously they go against Steph, and Steph goes thermonuclear, and they can't win. And I think also you kind of had a situation where Jason Tatum gets just completely worn out at the end there. But in terms of tactics, the guy is great. And whether he created the tactics or was a part of it, Will Hardy knows how to run X's and O's with a playoff team and with players. Now, he's going from an assistant in San Antonio with Pop. He is now a lead assistant. He was, not now, he was lead assistant in Boston with Ime Udoka. Now he comes over to the Utah Jazz. He's the guy. What's interesting in some of the news we're seeing, and this comes from Tony Jones. By the way, shout out to Tony Jones. Fantastic. But it sounds like the Jazz aren't keeping any assistants. They are cleaning house. And I personally love it. This is something the Jazz have needed. Now, I think they need to do a little bit of that with the roster. But I think, and it's the same goes with a lot of different places, the culture with the Jazz was just putrid. It was awful. You have Jazz players like, I mean, honestly, let's just be honest. Donovan Mitchell quit on the team during games in that first round where he just wasn't trying, where he's just getting blown by on defense, not because he wasn't like very good at it, because he flat out was just standing there not caring. You have Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell just clashing and fighting constantly. There is never at any point any sort of like accountability with this Jazz team, whether, Rudy Gobert is dogging it to show his value on defense, or Donovan Mitchell dogging it to show his value on offense, or pouting on the court, or not guarding your man, or staying in front of your man, or showing any sort of effort. That's gone. No more. That's all gone. We're cleaning house. Wanted to share a quote. I absolutely love it. Let's see. Let me just get this ready to show everyone here. This absolutely got a tear into my eye. Let's read it together. This is a quote from Will Hardy. He says, "If you're not actually doing all those things every day, then your culture is nothing," said Hardy. So it's always been about being selfish. Coach Pop says all the time, get over yourself. It ain't about you. No one person is bigger than this. And that goes from him all the way down. Welcome, Will Hardy. I can't think of a quote that better fits what this Jazz team needs than that. This Jazz team needs a culture overhaul. It needed a change. We saw it at the end of last season. No one player is more important than anyone. That goes for you, Donovan Mitchell. And I have to say, that goes for you too, Rudy Gobert. No one is more important than everyone else. You are only as strong as the weakest link. That goes for everyone in that locker room. This Jazz team needed to change, something fierce. And anyone who has been on this channel, who follows the Hoopster channel and SLC Dunk, was very aware of the problems going on. If you actually used your eyes and watched what was going on, it was ridiculous. 3 playoff series in a row, we get completely outcoached and outplayed. The defense was terrible, and there was never any sort of accountability, whether it was with the front office deciding to make changes, whether it was with the coaching staff benching players, or even playing their best players. It was just awful. And so that's awful. I guess I'm turning Boston here. It's awful, and now it's going to change. Now we have fresh blood in the front office, young, ready to grow, new coaching staff. It'll be exciting to see who these assistant coaches are. It's going to be a big change for Utah. We go from losing 3 to 4 assistant coaches every year to now getting new ones coming in. Some of those assistant coaches were getting arrested. That's the type of culture that the Utah Jazz had, and it's nice to see a change. I'm not going to lie. We've been waiting for it. I'm excited. Get excited, Jazz fans. For the first time in like 4 years, we can be excited about the postseason, or even just the season in general, that there's some sort of hope that there will be growth and evolution and accountability and change and tactics. I mean, there might actually be different styles going on with this team. Good and honestly unbelievable. And everything, if you haven't read Tony Jones, some of the quotes are amazing. Apparently, Will Hardy comes into these interviews and just blew the Jazz away. Absolutely blew him away. It's exciting to hear. And if you look at the trajectory, it's fantastic. Now, the other thing that's exciting, it's a 5-year contract. 5 years. First off, that's great, because if he's great, you have him for 5 years. The other thing that I think is interesting, he's young. And 5 years, if the Jazz decide, they could probably go for it this year. I wonder if they want to see for at least half a season how it looks. Although I guess we'll find out in a few days if the Jazz make any trades. But there's 2 routes really this can go. How does Will Hardy do with this roster, with a locker room that's actually honestly just terrible, with absolute zero leadership from anyone, We'll see how he does. Or we'll see if there's a rebuild and a trade, and then just going for someone like Wembanyama in the draft next year. Either way, the Jazz are set. But the nice thing about a 5-year contract is the fact that if they do tank and do a full rebuild, that goes perfectly with a 5-year contract. And you can see how hard he does. He can grow with the team. He can grow a culture, grow a system, grow different things, and grow relationships with new young players. And guess what? 5 years is perfect for a rebuild, because if he's the guy, then you just re-up him after 5 years. Boom! We go from a guy, I just honestly, I could not be more excited. We go from a guy in Quinn Snyder who wouldn't make any changes, who kind of just acted like he owned the state and just did whatever he wanted, wouldn't play the players the Jazz front office signed, wouldn't sit the players that he should have, blah, 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 blah. He can go coach somewhere else next year. Not, the following season, because he's still under contract. And we actually get someone in who's going to be new with energy and is going to make actual changes. And I love the accountability aspect of this. It makes me really excited. That was one of the things that apparently the Jazz were excited about, according to the Tony Jones article, is just the fact that they wanted to bring in accountability. And we've been talking about it for years. Does Danny Ainge, are you listening to this? Are you listening? Maybe he is. Maybe he reads SLC Dunk. Or maybe he just uses his eyes like all of us do. And the accountability was there because there was just zero with Quinn Snyder. Zero. Now we have a culture of accountability. We're an actual sports team in the professional National Basketball Association who actually benches players, tries different lineups, things that other teams do. We actually get to see. All right. It's going to be fun to watch. I can't believe it. It's exciting. All right, guys, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel. A shout out to our all-stars who make this channel great. You were right here. Can you see it? I haven't put the graphic in yet, but afterwards in post-production, I'll put it there. Shout out to the all-stars. You guys are amazing. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. I will talk to you next time.